In this particular recording, I'm going to explore what progress looks like in the body led modalities. And this is a question I get asked a lot. How will I know that this work is helping me? How will I know that something is changing for me? And I think these are really great questions and important questions to ask yourself and also the therapist that you're working with. When we think about the word progress, we think about progression, which is that something is moving from one state or one thing to another. And this distance between here and here is considered as progress. And this is a cognitive framework. When we move from one thing to another, and this notion of getting better at something, getting more skill at something, it's often, and that's how our education system is, that is how we are often measured, is that 70 marks is not as great as 90 marks. And this is what we have conceptualized as progress. However, when we think about our body and we think about it in response to our lived experience, that's not exactly how it works. If you were feeling less distressed and now you're aware of more distress, that doesn't mean that you're not progressing. All it means is that you have more awareness and perhaps you're picking up cues faster than before. And then the next question is, how do we get to know the distress even before, 3 steps before, 2 steps before? In this context, it's really about awareness and how attentive I can be moment to moment. And that could be a sign of more capacity. The other sign that I often look for is, how are we shifting away from familiar coping patterns? For example, if one of the ways in which you cope is through silencing, by which you return back into a place of not expressing yourself and you hold back, then what might it look like for you to find a little bit of your voice? And how might having more access to your own voice, like I'm playing this little sound thing, support you in getting a different response to what you already tend to do? The other thing to think about is weight. Now, if you're someone who has experienced immobility by having a lot more weight on your upper body than on your lower body, and sometimes you do not sense your feet, then perhaps progress is actually finding your feet, like I'm doing now, and finding your length. And this is a somatic discovery, but also has many more connotations of what it means for me to find my feet. How might I walk on different surfaces, having this knowing of what my feet feel like when I contact the surface. And what does this experience of length feel like, where I can have more of myself in the space, in relationships, in my body, in the environment? This could be another way of thinking about the word progress. And another way to think about progress is movement. If a lot of time has been spent in not taking any chances, staying really safe with a perfect response, then what does it feel like to just have a little play and sometimes even drop the ball? What does that feel like? And what does that bring up for me? And how might I learn to shift into more fades without looking at the ball at all times as I'm playing. Actually trusting that my hands know how to shift the ball, and if it doesn't find my hand, I have ways to stop it. This could be another way of thinking about progress. And the other way to think about it is containment. If if life has felt like nothing has stayed and I've had to have gaps and holes and things just fall off, what might it mean for a smaller surface area in which I can hold something small and notice how that feels before I add something else and notice how that feels. As you already are getting a drift of this kind of work, it's very incremental. We kind of base the next step based on the previous step. And so the knowing is really from within, and therefore translates into a different choice that can be made. We can be differently with the same situation. We can find a new response to what is familiar. And all of these is how progress is seen. I hope these examples help you kind of widen this word for yourself and have a bit more encouragement and acknowledgement of how you are moving through this work. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.